Is eating healthy bad for you? Well, if so, maybe eating healthy has become an obsession for you, which may actually hurt you. I'm Dr. 𝐎𝐫𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫𝐞𝐱, and this is Off the Couch. Has eating healthy become an obsession for you? If so, you might have an eating disorder called orthorexia. Now, never heard of orthorexia? Neither had I, honestly, and I was having lunch with a friend and she talked about the condition of orthorexia. And I said, well, what is that? And she said, well, it's the condition where someone has an obsessive compulsive disorder like eating obsession with healthy eating. So I went and looked into it. Actually, orthorexia was identified back in 1997 by an American physician named Stephen Bratman, where the root of ortho is orthos, which is Greek meaning right. So they're concerned with the right eating. Someone with orthorexia nervosa, which is not identified in the DSM-5, but yet it seems to be an eating disorder that's very much of this time and place, especially where I am in Los Angeles and probably other major metropolitan areas, and maybe some places like Austin, Portland, Seattle, where people become really obsessed with healthy eating, that we're starting to see this particular condition start to rise. So let's go over what it is. Orthorexia is the obsession with proper, healthful eating. And although being aware and concerned of nutritional values and healthy eating is good for all of us to do, especially in this era of processed foods, becoming obsessed with it can actually lead to malnutrition because you just end up not getting the right or proper nutrients because you're so concerned with having the absolute most healthy foods. So let's go down the warning signs and symptoms of orthorexia because maybe it's affecting you. Now there's not, again, because it's not in the DSM, because we don't have an agreed upon criteria, all I can do is just talk about some of the symptoms or warning signs that may be present, and I'll talk about some of the treatments or the treatment that might be used in the treatment of orthorexia. So with orthorexia, number one is compulsive checking of ingredient lists and nutritional basis. You know, we're all taught to look at the labels and to see how much sugar something has, how much salt, and to be concerned about the calorie count, and perhaps that's good. But people with orthorexia might be overly concerned. They might be the type that goes to a restaurant and absolutely grills the waiter or waitress about what's in the food and where the food came from. Was it grass-fed beef, or was it is it something that's hormonally balanced or hormone-free or raised without antibiotics? All these types of things, which might seem sort of ridiculous or straight out of a sketch of Portlandia, but it's somebody with orthorexia is just absolutely concerned that they might put something in their body that's unhealthy. Number two would be an increase or concern about the health of ingredients. Goes back to what I was just saying. But they look at the individual ingredients and really go down a minute list. And I've known friends who've done this. They look at, there's one ingredient, let's say in milk, or one ingredient in bread, or one ingredient that will keep them from eating that particular thing. Not because they don't like it, because they're afraid of the negative health connotations of that particular thing. Number three would be cutting out an increasing number of food groups. Perhaps I see this the biggest, so I'm in Los Angeles, I hear this all the time. People wanting to go gluten-free. Now there are people who do genuinely have a gluten allergy, but it's actually very rare, especially compared to the amount of people who identify themselves to be gluten sensitive. But the gluten-free people who are overly concerned with carbs, people who are overly concerned with sugar intake, dairy, animal products, and meats, these people can actually become obsessed and just look at it constantly. Number four is the inability to eat anything but a narrow group of foods that they identify as healthy and pure. So they've narrowed it down to a very small subsection of foods that they're willing to eat. That may even include a very small subsection of stores or even aisles that go into the stores, because that's where they know that their particular healthy foods are. Number 5 is an unusual interest in the health of what others are eating. We see this a lot with anorexia and bulimia, where people become overly concerned with what their partners are eating, with what people around them are eating. But this is the same with people with orthorexia. They become overly concerned with what other people are eating, asking them about it, wondering about it. And you'll often see this, like if you're in a restaurant with a person, they'll really look at your food and even criticize what you're eating. It's funny because I went on a cruise with somebody once, and I had a particular a supplement that I was using. It was like a workout supplement. And my cabin mate said he felt sorry for me because it had 2 grams of sugar in this particular thing, and that was very much a concern for him that I was putting that in my body. If only he knew I drank Kool-Aid and did all kinds of things that probably were much worse than that particular 2 grams of sugar. Number 6 would be spending several hours per day thinking about what food might be served at upcoming events. These are the people who might even call ahead or be very worried if they go to a wedding about exactly what they're going to be served and where it came from. Again, they're always concerned with not only the nutritional value, but where something comes from and the healthful effects of that food. Another one is showing high levels of distress when safe or healthy foods aren't available. They become very upset, and they actually get very worked up that they aren't getting the type of foods that they believe that they need. Number 8 would be obsessive following of food and healthy lifestyle blogs on Twitter or Instagram or any other number of places where these people just become obsessed with the healthy foods. Now, there's no end of people posting meals on Instagram or talking about their healthy lifestyle. And I often wonder about these people because they'll often talk about how healthy they are. And then if you see a picture of them, it makes you wonder. But they may even themselves, because of their obsession with the food, they may be suffering from the effects of orthorexia, who knows. But if you become obsessed with following these blogs, maybe you need to look inside to see what's going on with you. And number 9 would be body image concerns that may or may not be present. Sometimes this is driven because we might be overly concerned with our body for any number of reasons. And we try to look inside or look outside for validation. And I see this a lot in places like Los Angeles and also Miami, where people have to be or are very concerned about their physical appearance. So they start to really look at what they're eating and what they're putting into their body. We also see certain personality risk factors. Just like in other eating disorders, perfectionism is number 1. People who tend to be very perfectionistic tend to also apply that perfectionism to the way they eat food. Number 2 is having high anxiety. People who are have very high anxiety then tend to apply that anxiety to different situations, and it may spill over onto their food. And another one is the need for control, that needing to keep control. And if they become obsessed with food, they can actually have a world that they then can control, and it actually provides them some measure of relief from a world that does not give them a great deal of control. Now, there are also certain professions, perhaps not at all surprising, that we see a higher incidence of orthorexia. And those are careers that need to be focused on health. Now, out here in Los Angeles, we might see actors and actresses, dancers, entertainers, models, musicians, and you might see this in other places as well. We also see people that are in the athletic field become extremely concerned about what they eat, and also healthcare workers who are very concerned about what they eat. Now, orthorexia is not just a psychological illness, it actually can be a physical illness. And as I said earlier, malnutrition is highly likely if you follow an overly restrictive diet or an overly narrow diet. We actually need to have a wide variety of intake of things, or we're going to suffer from the effects of malnutrition, which could come in a variety of forms. And some of those forms could be something like a vitamin pill, or it could be something like eating meat or eating a dairy product that could give us calcium, or meat that can give us zinc. So we need to get these nutrients from somewhere. Now, one effect of malnutrition, there's also anemia that can take effect, abnormally slow heart rate. There can be digestion problems raised because of orthorexia, electrolyte imbalances, hormone imbalances, metabolic acidosis, impaired bone health. It can go on and on because we're not taking in the proper nutrients. Now, when we look at the treatment of orthorexia, we don't have a specific protocol yet, as we might for anorexia and bulimia nervosa, but we do think it's treated in basically the same way, and it's treated like an obsessive compulsive disorder, where we're treating the person with something called exposure with response prevention. And that means actually exposing them to their feared foods and their anxiety-provoking foods, and allowing them to actually have those foods, especially the foods that might give them what's missing in their diet or what's missing in their nutritional intake. And it's helping them to see that their body can really survive and that they can get through and even thrive and be better once they start to eat in a more healthy manner, because orthorexia, although it's paradoxically about health, actually causes them to be quite unhealthy. So this is just a short rundown of orthorexia. It's something I didn't know a great deal about, and something that's not talked about a great deal, but I think it's something that we're going to see more and more of as people become more obsessed with ingredients that are in foods, and as we see a proliferation of healthy blogs and foods and other things on the internet. And also people are always going to be concerned about their body image and also health and well-being. So we're going to see more of this, and we'll probably have more studies as we come down the line. But until then, if you think you're someone who might be suffering from orthorexia, it might be something to see a mental health professional, especially one who specializes in treatment of obsessive compulsive disorder or eating disorders, and that person can probably help you out a great deal. I'm Dr. 𝐎𝐫𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫𝐞𝐱, and this is Off the Couch.